Hi there, Ella. Zach at Feel Free to Argue. Really wanted to do a response video to this video that you did on collective silence. Mostly because, well, I guess, in my grand tradition of peddling depression, I think the silence is very much indicative of a moral failing of the country. That specifically being, we've bought this lie. And I'm not saying that, we're 100% culpable, because we've had this beautiful engineered thing dropped in our laps. I mean, there's been so much propaganda on the subject of torture that most people have completely misguided ideas about it. They just don't understand where torture comes from and why we're really doing it. Because the most important thing, I think, to be aware of is the fact that torture absolutely does not work for what we claim we're using it for. And there's a lot of evidence out to that effect. I mean, only the guy on Democracy Now! That I talked about in a recent video is only the most recent example. And if you go back and you examine the relevant chapters in Naomi Klein's book, you see that our torture techniques didn't come out of an interrogation framework. They came out of really bad psychology. And I say really bad psychology, even though the person who initially developed a lot of the techniques was at one point at the absolute pinnacle of his profession, in charge of the American Psychological Association, winner of numerous awards. But, like a lot of brilliant people, he just went that extra step too far, and got this whole notion, which undergirds a lot of our torture techniques, that you can unmake a person psychologically and then rebuild them from the ground up and be in control of that rebuilding. And this is just, it's wrong. There's no other way to express that sentiment. If you think you're going to get actionable information using these kind of processes, you're just misguided. You don't understand torture, and you don't understand how it works, or rather why it does not work. But the bigger problem is that we live in a society where this illusion that's built up around torture is more important than its actual effects. I mean, why do you think there's so much secrecy surrounding our CIA black sites and Guantanamo? I mean, if we were getting a lot of success out of these places, I think they would be talking about it. They would be pointing to the successes of our torture program and saying, look, we're doing this stuff and it's really unsavory, but look, we stopped this terrorist attack here, we stopped this terrorist attack there, we've totally destroyed this organization. They would be saying things like this because they've been looking for justifications for what they're doing anyway. But as I pointed out in earlier bits that I've done, the point has never been to get actionable information. The point has always been to demonstrate to the world that the United States does not play by the same rules as everybody else, and that we will not be bound by the rules of the world. And that's what it's about. It's us saying we're the new Rome, that we will not obey the world's rules, that we're above them. Much in the same way that the people who rule our country now put themselves above the law with, signing statements and pardons. And honestly, I thought one of the funnier parts of, Ted Stevens, the whole flack about him was that, no, it was the guy from the Chicago governor who wanted to become a senator, perhaps, because it would make it harder to prosecute him. So there is this huge systemic failure, both in the sense that we're allowing this thing to continue when it's producing no results whatsoever. And it should be obvious. I mean, people should be asking the question. I mean, okay, we're engaging in torture. Let's see those results. And I think it's very telling that nobody seems to even care whether or not it's producing any fruit or not, whether we are getting any results or not. I think that if we're going, I mean, it's much the same way as with the whole Iraq War. We allow ourselves to not care about the consequences of our actions. We allow ourselves to be sheltered. We refuse to take responsibility for what the government is doing. And I think you're right. I think this is a huge systemic problem. The lack of outrage, I don't know. As a specific cause for concern, I'm not even sure I see it. Yeah, I mean, it was astonishing that Cheney said it in such a frank manner, but I can't help thinking, why would anybody be surprised? Why would anybody be surprised by anything that Cheney said? I mean, this information has really been out there. I mean, I know there is kind of a conspiracy in the mainstream media to kind of hide this all away. But I mean, there have been excellent books. There have been tremendous movies. There have been tons and tons of investigative articles, all documenting what Cheney was talking about. So I think it's a twofold problem. I think it's a problem in that we don't get accurate information about our torture regime and its lack of success, the fact that it wasn't designed for that. There's no dialogue about it really at all. I mean, except in the most general sense. I mean, close Gitmo. Well, restore the rule of law. How about no torture? No torture at all. And for the most logical, practical, sensible reason. It does not work for what we say we're using it for. But on another level, aside from there being this attempt to hide it away, there's also the additional problem of us not digging. And I think more and more, I mean, I tend to forgive the American public because I think a person can do a reasonably good job of trying to be informed and not be informed, because that's how much deception is out there. But at a certain level, at a certain point, we are all ultimately responsible for what happens. And so that only takes you so far. And at a certain point, it is our obligation to dig and to find out what's really happening and to find out whether or not we're being lied to. And I guess those are my thoughts on the subject. Sorry for going on so long.